When I think about January, any other time of the year, I think of a month that I'd rather just skip over. A few weeks ago, my kids and I were ranking the months of the year in order from our favorite to our least favorite. And January was consistently ranked in the bottom 3 by everyone except Luke, who actually prefers to be outside in winter over any other season. He said it's the best hiking, everything's clear. Obviously it's not hot, there's no bugs. So for many reasons, he loves January, and he and a lot of the kids actually spend many, many hours outside even this time of year. I didn't always think so badly of January. When I was a kid, it meant going to Colorado on our family's annual ski trip, snow days from school, and sledding at the racetrack that my grandpa owned by a bonfire with my cousins. I never really worried about winter coming. In my adult years, though, as I've had more kids, more outdoor hobbies like gardening and sitting creekside on endless summer days, and generally just enjoying the freedom of stepping outside barefoot and knowing that the sun won't go down until we've done everything we've wanted to do for the day. The shorter days of late October bring with them a certain dread of the season ahead. When I was a kid, my grandma used to always say that she did not like fall simply because of what it meant was coming. And I always thought that was so funny. And we always just laughed when she said it. And the older I get, the more I find myself having the same feelings towards fall. I love fall, but in the back of my mind, it doesn't have that endless feeling like summer. It feels like summer when it starts. I have this major sense of relief and freedom, like it's never going to end. Whereas with fall, it feels very transitional. I know that it just is the season that gets you to winter. One of my top complaints, I promise this video will get more positive, with winter here in Missouri is how ugly everything feels. We only have snow on the ground a handful of days, and the rest of the year is a sloppy mess, brown and dingy. But in the summer, the full green shade trees cast inconsistent shadows on the sidewalks, the window boxes overflow with herbs and ivy, and the weeds that have taken over the yard are just green and lush looking. The perfect stand-in for grass. The past few years, though, I've noticed that being negative about winter doesn't necessarily make it easier to get through. And there are a few things about winter that I actually found myself getting sentimental about last April when I realized they were almost over. So for example, the last fire in the wood stove that I sit in front of for probably at least 1 hour every single day, when you feel like you just can't get warm, sitting up close to 500 degrees definitely does the trick. Shorter days mean cozy nights in, more time to cook from scratch meals, and more time together. Winter allows for a time of rest. There just isn't that much going on when the busyness of Christmas is past and there are still months before I need to think about seedlings and spring chicks. Winter's a time for learning something new, getting into a good book, planning goals for the upcoming year, time on the couch with a cozy blanket, meal planning, or room designing, something I'm really enjoying doing this time of year when there's just nothing left to do. I can sit there on my phone and put together mood boards and design plans, something that makes me thrive in the winter. Winter is a quiet and refreshing time to dream, plan, and rest. And today I'm going to show you some things that I like to do to keep my hands busy in January and February. The first way to keep your hands busy during these short days, well, long days because the sun shines for such a short time, is to work on little home projects. So I found this lamp for $10 at a thrift shop. I thought it really had potential, but it needed a new lamp cover. And so I am making a pleated lampshade, which I showed you I did a few months ago, and I wanted to do it again. So I took some gingham fabric that I had, cut strips in the length of the shade, folded them over and pressed them, and then started layering them on the lampshade with hot glue. I overlapped these a lot less than I did my last lampshade, so the last ones have a much tighter pleat because I just didn't have enough fabric. I thought I'd run out, and I almost did. Next, I sewed together a bunch of skinny strips. Again, lack of fabric means I didn't have a continuous piece to finish off the top and the bottom. I pressed the raw edges to the inside, folded it in half, put a quick little seam on there, and then hot glued it around the bottom of the lamp and the top of the lampshade to finish off all those raw edges. Now, if you didn't have a sewing machine, you didn't want to sew at all, you could just press this long piece and then just hot glue it on. You would not have to sew. I like that little finished edge, and I have a sewing machine available really easily, so I did it. But this could easily be a no-sew project with scrap fabric. So it's very inexpensive, especially if you find a cheap lamp that you like that just needs a little bit of recovering. Every once in a while I have to take one of the pleats and hot glue them over because I didn't put them tight enough to have the raw edge not pop out. It's a very forgiving project though. Even when it feels like it's not gonna look that nice, the ending lampshades, in my experience of doing this 3 times now, end up looking so pretty and custom, special, unique. I love home decor like that. The next thing on my list is artful bread baking. And if you are brand new to baking bread, just learning bread in the winter is a worthwhile pursuit. It's so cozy. It's warm when the oven's going. You have a nourishing meal. Today, I am experimenting with a rosemary loaf and a white raisins loaf. I've been doing this lately non-stop. It is so good. So with the white raisins, I know I'm showing rosemary here, but next I'll be doing the white raisins. It is so good with a salty soup. So we served the white raisin sourdough alongside potato soup. And you know how you put raisins in stuffing sometimes for Thanksgiving? It kind of is that same little bit of sweetness, unexpected, but very delicious. Now the rosemary sourdough tastes so good right out of the oven with some butter that melts into it. I just add rosemary in the stretch and fold vase. I was actually also photographing this for the blog. So this is now a recipe that's up on the blog. It's just the usual sourdough recipe, but with rosemary added. You wouldn't believe what that adds in deliciousness and then also in beauty. Just so satisfying to see these beautiful creations come from your kitchen. It makes you want to experiment more, learn more, and winter couldn't be a better time to do it. Now, if you're ever going to have time to knit, winter would be it. Sitting on the couch on those early evenings, if you're inside like we are after 5 o'clock when it's dark. I don't last super long on knitting projects, so I do something simple like a pot holder. I don't knit often. I remember when I was laying in bed after having one of my babies, I knit a hat because I was just holding the baby. I could handle the baby and the knitting needles. Very simple projects. I don't know how to do much more than just the knit and the purl and cast on and off. That's it. But it's all you really need to know to be satisfied by moving your hands and the needles and being a little bit productive while also just being cozy, maybe watching a movie or watching your kids play. I love that I can multitask in that way with something like knitting. Another beautiful winter project is candle making. I have this piece in our hutch that I picked up a few months ago at an antique fair type of thing, or a barn sale is what it was. It had a beautiful lid and it fell off and cracked. And so I thought it would make a really nice candle. To make the candle, I just hot glue a wick to the bottom. Now, of course, you could also do dipped candles, but poured candles are so much easier. You can get them done with very minimal mess. I actually had a jar that I'd used to make dipped candles, and so I had some reserved beeswax in it that I've been meaning to melt down for another project. So I just added that jar to a pot with water and a towel at the bottom so that it wouldn't crack. And then I had a chunk of beeswax left over from another project. I can't even remember now what it was, but I know that I poured the rest of my beeswax in molds. To make the wick centered, I just put a little pencil on top, wrap the wick around, and get it really centered. And then once the wax is melted, I just start pouring it in. Now, I like to add a little bit of the wax and then return it back to boiling water. This just makes it to where, well, at least I feel like it'll melt easier if I remove a bulk of the wax. You can see my wax isn't all that pure. It's been used, like I said, to make dipped candles. After it's poured and dried, I trim the wick, light the candle, and enjoy. You can look around antique shops for pieces that are maybe missing lids or would otherwise be forgotten that can be turned into beautiful candles. I encourage you to learn something new this season and come into spring and summer, still the best seasons of the year in my humble opinion, well rested and with a fresh perspective and some new skills. Happy January.